Welcome back to my Transformers Prime episode reviews. Today, we're taking a look at the 3-part Season 1 finale, One Shall Rise. This episode picks up right where the previous episode, One Shall Fall, left off, with Megatron, energized by the dark energon erupting from the nearby volcano, looming over Optimus Prime. Luckily, the other Autobots come to Optimus's rescue.
This is merely the beginning. I now possess enough dark energon to reanimate Unicron himself.
Well, actually, back at the Autobot base, Optimus and Raph are both in the recovery room. And it's kind of cute how Optimus smiles at Raph. See, he can show emotion sometimes.
What in the world is the blood of Unicron doing here on Earth?
The cons killed a unicorn? White horse with a horn on its head. Prances around all sparkly.
This is pretty funny, especially because Unicron would sometimes get autocorrected to unicorn. Although I can't help but think this might be a subtle nod to My Little Pony and the character of Twilight Sparkle. You know, because unicorn, and Miko does mention sparkles, like Twilight Sparkle? Maybe? So June takes Raph to go see a human doctor, and she tries to take Jack and Miko away too, but they refuse. Hey, I just noticed. My OC and June have the same eye makeup. Wait, does that mean that my OC is a... never mind. So, unnatural weather phenomenon begins happening simultaneously all around the globe.
Don't tell me your cons have built a weather machine.
One that powerful? Highly unlikely.
I wonder if this is a nod to yet another Hasbro franchise, G.I. Joe, and Cobra's Weather Dominator. June and Raph are on their way into town when they run into a tornado. Something tells me that this one isn't going to transport them to Oz, or wherever it was that Whirl went in that one episode of Rescue Bots Academy. Fortunately, they are saved by Bumblebee, and they return back to base.
What have you learned, Prime? And you better not blow smoke up my... Miss Darby. What a nice surprise.
Special Agent Fowler?
Okay, obviously there seems to be a little bit of a thing between June and Agent Fowler. But isn't this the first time that we've seen these two together? Yet it seems like they've already met. Also, does this remind anyone else of Happy Hogan and Aunt May in Spider-Man Far From Home? Anyways, the Autobots and Decepticons finally figure it out, and they come to the realization that Unicron is the Earth. Or at least the core of the Earth. This is followed by Optimus Prime expositing the whole mythos of Primus, Unicron, and the original 13. I love that this is finally something in the cartoons, no longer just obscure prose fiction. Meanwhile, Megatron meets Unicron, and once again, this feels very reminiscent of The Wizard of Oz. Unfortunately, even though Megatron seems to be simping for Unicron, the Chaos Bringer wants nothing to do with old Megs. Aww, poor Megatron. Unicron goes after Optimus Prime himself, who pleads with the Dark God to spare the human race.
So this humankind of whom you speak, you consider them my progeny? Indeed. Parasites! They too shall know my wrathful hand.
Aww, that was kind of cool for a second to think that all of humankind are the children of Unicron. But of course, Daddy Unicron doesn't seem to be the fatherly type. And we end this first part with Unicrons popping out of all the rocks around Optimus.
For Unicron may be one, but we all are Unicron.
Part 2 of One Shall Rise begins where we left off in the last episode, with Optimus Prime surrounded by Unicrons, as he takes them on single-handedly. But he doesn't last very long, and soon begins to get overwhelmed. Fortunately, his fellow Autobots disobey his orders and come to his rescue. And once again, they have some great fight choreography. I especially love Bumblebee's dropkick here. Unicron eventually creates a giant version of himself, which proves difficult for the Autobots to deal with, but they are saved by Megatron. Megatron seeks an alliance with Optimus and his Autobots in order to defeat Unicron, which Ratchet adamantly objects. I wonder if this relates to Ratchet's tirade a couple episodes ago. After much discussion, they finally agree, and they transport Megatron to the Autobot base.
No fair! I've never seen him! Why do we have to hide?
Because I said so.
So, this is where the magic happens. Quaint.
Raphael, no! You...
You're looking much better than the last time we met, little one. And you, I never forget a face, even that of a human.
You double-cross anyone! Mine is the face you'll never forget! Never!
Oh yeah, that's right. Megatron has met Jack before, back in the episode Rock Bottom, when he dared him to drill him in the face. And he's actually met Raph twice, sort of. Once when he was revived, and again a couple episodes ago when he nearly killed him. And technically, he sort of met them all before that, back when he was in possession of Bumblebee's body. So yeah, I can see why Raph is especially not fond of Megatron. And like I mentioned in last week's review, Optimus entrusts Jack with what he claims to be the key to the ground bridge, but it is actually the key to Vector Sigma. Obviously a nod to the original one from G1 and Beast Machines. Again, Optimus no doubt gave the key to Jack because he reminds him of himself from before he was a Prime, which is probably also foreshadowing to the end of this season finale and the beginning of Season 2. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So this second episode ends with Megatron and the Autobots ground bridging inside of Unicron's body, as we see what appears to be a giant eyeball looking around. It's funny how this reminds me of the G1 episode Microbots, which I also reviewed recently. And so we begin this final episode of Transformers Prime Season 1 with Megatron, Optimus, and the other Autobots slinking through Unicron's body. Meanwhile, Ratchet exposits how Optimus and Megatron used to be BFFs. Specifically, he mentions how Optimus used to be a data clerk named Orion Pax. This is actually a combination of two of Optimus's previous selves. In the Dreamwave books, before he was Optimus Prime, he was the data archivist named Optronics. And in the G1 episode War Dawn, we learn that Optimus used to be the dock worker named Orion Pax. Obviously, Transformers Prime took the name from G1 and the occupation from Dreamwave to give us this unified origin story for Optimus Prime. Likewise, we see Megatron's beginnings as a gladiator, who named himself after one of the original 13, Megatronus, aka the Fallen. This story would be repeated again and again in future fiction, such as in Transformers Cyberverse and the Netflix War for Cybertron trilogy. It is also interesting how in these flashbacks we see Megatron with blue eyes, before they eventually turn red. Again, I wonder what this is trying to say about eye color in the aligned continuity. Did Megatron's eyes turn red because he turned evil? Then what about Arachnid? She has purple eyes. What does that mean? So Ratchet recounts how the planet of Cybertron was poisoned by Dark Energon, and how Optimus traveled to the core of Cybertron, where he was bestowed upon with the Matrix of Leadership, which vaguely summarizes the events of the War for Cybertron video game, which you can watch my playthrough of right here. Megatron and the Autobots continue their literal journey to the center of the Earth, which kind of reminds me of the last episode of G1 Season 3, where Galvatron brought the Autobots to that special metal that they needed to protect themselves from the hate plague. But the Prime Autobots are soon attacked by Unicron's antibodies, which of course reminds me of the Autobots in the G1 movie. It's also pretty cool how we see Optimus and Megatron fighting alongside each other. I bet all the Meg-Op fans loved this episode. Meanwhile, Arachnid schemes to take control of the Decepticons, but Soundwave opposes her.
You have something to say, Soundwave?
Nice. And so, apparently the Bug Lady is no match for Soundwave and his pet Laserbeak.
Watch out for the quiet ones.
Back inside Unicron, Unicron is inside Megatron's head. Again, very reminiscent of Galvatron in the 1986 movie. They enter Unicron's spark chamber and...
Megatron! Destroy the Prime! I command you! Megatron is commanded by no one!
Again, nice reference to the 86 movie.
All upon this world shall fall into chaos!
Not while I still function, Unicron.
Yet again, this could be a neat reverse of when Megatron said a similar line in the original animated movie.
The power of the Matrix will light our darkest hour.
And of course, yet another G1 reference. So awesome. It's also interesting to note that Unicron possesses Megatron here, which he would do again at the end of the series in the TV movie finale, Predacons Rising. So, using the power of the Matrix, Optimus Prime seemingly destroys Unicron's spark. Although, as I just said, Unicron would survive. Rid of Unicron's dark influence, Megatron returns to his normal red-eyed self. But Optimus reverts even more to his old Orion Pax persona. And Megatron escapes with his old buddy. And the other Autobots return to their base without their leader. And of course, we end this episode with Optimus, or rather Orion Pax, joining the Decepticons. Well, this was a great three-parter. So many great callbacks to previous fiction. Mainly the G1 movie, but we do have some other influences in here too. And like I previously mentioned, I love that they brought up the whole thing with Primus, Unicron, and the original 13. I just wish that we had a single cartoon where we'd learn more about all of them. I mean, in Cybertron we had Vector Prime. In the Machinima series we had Megatronus and Solus Prime. And in Cyberverse we had Macadam, aka Alchemist Prime. I would love to see a cartoon where all of the original 13 got some time to shine, and we could finally learn about how all their different powers work and what their relationships with each other are. It's also interesting how they would kind of use this idea of Unicron being the Earth in the live-action Transformers movie The Last Knight. Of course, as we know, nothing really came of that. Again, this was an amazing three-parter, and it's followed by yet another three-parter, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. For now, let me know what you thought of One Shall Rise down in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and do all that other fun stuff, and I'll see you here next week for the Season 2 premiere of Transformers Prime, Orion Pax. Oh boy. Again, I bet you're going to enjoy that one. So, I'll see you back here next week for that.